Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Farewell Falling Nations. I am your guide through this calamitous world we're living in, B. the Professor. We are here back at it because there is no end. There is no end to the wickedness. There's no end to the calamity. It is pervasive and strong, and it is boundless. We've got quite a few interesting stories today to go through. A lot of controversial things, a lot of things that are probably going to ruffle the feathers of those that are not necessarily inclined to recognize that our societies are collapsing with immorality and impurity. Sex sells, does it not? And sex is something that we consider to be taboo to talk about, but yet we are, especially in the United States, completely engulfed into all manner of inflamed sexual immorality. And today's episode is going to feature quite a bit of discussion around sex. Buckle in, strap yourselves in for a ride. But an opportunity here on Farewell Fallen Nations. We would love for you to contribute. Be a patron, be a partner. If you go to the site and you see where the podcast lives, we are on a Podbean domain, if you will, but you can donate. There's different levels of participation that you can contribute towards for this wonderful show. Allow us to continue this dialogue, is also give back. I am a person that doesn't feel the need to take all from myself. I want to give a portion back to benevolence and philanthropic efforts, so that money is going to go towards that as well. And there's different levels of giving, whether it's $1 or $5 or $10, whatever you feel led to contribute or participate at whatever level of participation, please do so. So I'll leave that there. Do it. Be a FFN contributor. FFN, I like that. Don't you guys like that? Farewell Falling Nations, FFN. I'm going to get merch and things like that. I think maybe that'd be dope to have that so that you can kind of be squatted up. We are going to continue this resistance because that's what it is, right? Like, we have to bring light to darkness, to expose things. Because a lot of these things, we read these stories and we just go about our day to day. But I would feel a lot of conviction if I did not bring to light what is done in the dark. The evil deeds of men must be exposed. And this is something that happens far too often in this country in terms of interactions with children. Yeah, you know where I'm going. Pedophilia, or minor attracted persons, MAPS. And one of these pedophiles or MAPS, depending on if you are thinking that the word pedophile is offensive or derogatory, and you want to consider a different position in terms of how you talk about people who are raping children, in a polite way. I don't know if people who rape children should be given politeness, but, all fall short of the glory of God, right? But there's just some things that seem to be, I don't know, maybe you're possessed with some sort of demonic entity, because how you bring yourself to do things to a 4-year-old child. That's right, a 4-year-old child. You may have heard this story. This happened, at least it was reported about a week ago. Maybe the time you hear this, when it's posted and published, maybe it's a couple weeks now, but it's relevant nonetheless. UFC fighter Cain Velasquez's 4-year-old son said a suspect molested him 100 times. Cain Velasquez is currently locked up in a California prison after hearing about what happened to his son. Understandably so. And Cain, who is a UFC fighter, ex-champion, for a living, he uses his hands and feet to punish other grown men and gets paid to do so. So this is not an individual that is passive or going to allow something to happen to him without there being a consequence. And after hearing this, Cain did some things. He did some things. He tried to get his hands on the individual, but the individual fled. And so Cain decides that he chased or wanted to chase this guy down in his car. But in his rage, he shoots into the vehicle because he had a gun on him once he was able to kind of corner this car in. Well, this coward of a man who's running from Cain, who's raping children, he had his mother and father in the car. So unfortunately, the bullets that Cain shot into the car didn't hit this heathen. It hit the parents, who were obviously aiding and abetting a fugitive. And along for the ride here in this high-speed chase in California. And the stepfather, I believe, of this pedophile was struck. He's alive. They weren't life-threatening injuries, but Cain Velasquez is being held on attempted murder charges. What's even worse about this whole situation is that he can't get out because the judge in California denied his bail. He can't bond out because she said that what he did was reckless and he's a menace to society as a result of it. He can't be trusted in society. Oh, but the plot thickens. The pedophile who's been molesting children at his mother's in-home daycare is still walking around. You heard that right. He's walking around out free in the free world. While Cain Velasquez is in a jail cell because he is the danger to society for shooting into a car of a heathen pervert while the heathen pervert is walking around free. He's innocent until proven guilty. What kind of country do we live in? Ask yourself. I don't know what is going on in California and who these people are and what kind of judge this is, but this seems a little bit strange to me. How is it that an individual who is putting his penis in children or sucking on little boys' penises or having little boys suck on his penis, doing it multiple times at a daycare where people are dropping off their children, they're dropping off their children in a place where they presume that they are safe and well taken care of. This lady has her son. He's giving free access. It's like a pedophile's haven. He's just eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Pick a kitty by his toe and tell him not to holler. And he will not let him go. And he's doing it like all the time. I mean, so he's just getting his fill of kitty sex every single day. And the judge found it acceptable to allow this man to come out and walk around free until his trial. Ah, my goodness, America. How you have fallen and gone astray. I don't understand how this could even occur. Oh, well, I do know, because we're not bothered by sexual immorality in this nation. Like, sexual immorality is just another form of entertainment, different forms of it. People have kinks, and I guess this is just another kink, right? So we can't lock up a guy for having a kink. I mean, can't blame him for liking kitties. He likes kids at 4 years old. So let me give you some details of this so you can kind of process it yourself, and maybe you come to a different conclusion than I do. I don't know. But ESPN reported that the victim told Santa Clara police that Harry Goularte, 43, took him in a bathroom and molested him. The child allegedly claimed that Goularte ordered him not to tell what occurred and that it has happened 100 times. Now, he's 4 years old, so, I mean, kids at that age don't necessarily have a great grasp just because from a cognitive developmental standpoint, they don't have the ability to, time and space, numbers, they have a challenge of being able to quantify those kinds of things. So was it 100 times specifically? Probably not 100 times specifically, but for a little boy at 4 years old to say 100 times means that it was a hell of a lot of times. The reported assault occurred at Goularte's mother's home daycare in San Martin, where Goularte also resides. The 4-year-old also told police that he witnessed Goularte and other children go into the bathroom. This makes my stomach drop. This guy is he's 43, living with his mom. There's all kinds of parental negligence going on here. 43 years old, living with your mother. I don't know. As a parent, I would have some serious apprehensions if I went into a home daycare and the woman's grown son was living there. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with that. I wonder what the red flags were, as a parent. Like, did you just ignore them? Was there something inside of your conscious that told you, maybe I shouldn't take my kid here. We should find another provider. And you pushed through? I hope not, because I know those parents are feeling really, really terrible right now. Or Goularte, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Maybe you guys can help me. It's Goularte. He had been charged with lewd and lascivious acts with a child under the age of 14. He was arraigned on February 25th and placed on supervised release. What? Supervised release? He's taking kids into a bathroom and raping them, molesting them. Well, this was against the wishes of Santa Clara County prosecutors, of course. But the judge obviously has empathy towards male minor attracted persons. 3 days later, Goularte was en route to get an electronic monitor fitted when Velasquez allegedly chased him from San Martin through Morgan Hill before shooting at him in South San Jose. Velasquez was arrested in San Jose. Goularte's mother and stepfather were also in the vehicle at the time of the shooting. The stepfather was wounded in his arm and torso, but he's expected to survive. Earlier reports identified the victim as a girl, but it's not. It's his son. No wonder why he chased this guy. Velasquez was charged with attempted murder in connection with the February 28th shooting. He remains in jail without bail. GoFundMe recently shut down 2 fundraisers established to cover his expenses. Velasquez, who remains jail without bond, is due back in court April 14th. GoFundMe apparently likes pedophiles too, and they don't like men who try to do something about a 4-year-old, their 4-year-old son, being molested by a demonic, perverted, sexually immoral heathen. Congratulations, GoFundMe. You are, like Charlemagne says, the donkey of the day. Why would you shut down a fundraiser established for this man's medical expenses? It seems like this is not a side you should be taking. Pedophile versus Cain Velasquez. I guess the appropriate response when you hear that your 4-year-old son is being habitually raped is just to sit in the house and say, I guess the police will handle this. I don't know. This is a tough one. I mean, should he have shot into a car? No, probably not. I would have rather have him beat his brains out. That would have been probably a better solution than shooting into a car. But, the guy was running. He couldn't get a hold of him. So after a while, the rage inside of you, it takes over. Attempted murder. Maybe there should be something called justifiable attempted murder, because this seems very justifiable. And in fact, there have now been several UFC fires, all from the heads of UFC, from Dana White on down, that have now written letters to the judge there in Santa Clara, where Cain is being held without bail, pleading with them to allow there to be a bail so that he can get out and then be able to interact with his family and his kids. So now this man's kid, who is a victim of serial rape, is already traumatized, and now you put his father in jail. Great job, California. Great job. You are a beacon of integrity and justice. You care more about the pedophile and his family than Cain Velasquez and his family. The mother of Cain's son is in turmoil. Cain's son is in turmoil. Cain is in turmoil. And you wag your finger and say, this is your fault. You created this. You deserve to suffer. While the pedophile and his family are running around like they're victims, like they've been victimized by a crime. This is wrong. I don't understand what is going on in the minds of people in this country. And these are people that are in authority that we are trusting to make decisions. I am very glad that I don't live in California. Because if these are the kinds of simpletons that are in charge of making decisions, my. No wonder why there's a mass exodus of people leaving California, because of the governance there. It's atrocious. What do you do, guys? What do you do? What would you do in this situation? You come home, you find out your 4-year-old's being raped. Some pervert grown man living with his mother has been sucking on your kid's penis. What do? You sit at the house? I don't know very many men that would just sit around and wait for justice to be served by the courts. And a lot of times these individuals don't even really get what they deserve. They get like little slaps on the wrist, or they get a little bit of time, and they get out and they got to register as sex offenders. That wouldn't feel like justice to me if I was a father and I found out that my 4-year-old was having to suck a grown man's penis. I'm purposely saying it like that because it needs to be said. We need to picture and visualize it. Because if you just say, oh, he was touched, if you're a grown adult, you know what happens during sex. If you're talking about homosexual sex, there's only a couple options here that can happen. Either you're giving or you're receiving. So either you're making the boy give or the little boy is receiving. So either you're inserting your grown penis into his anus or you're sucking on his little 4-year-old penis or you are making him suck on you. That's what's happening here. Picture it in your mind. Now take that picture and put that picture in Cain Velasquez's mind. And then envision your next actions. Take a minute. Think about it. What do you do next? Do you sit? I guarantee that the vast majority of you listening right now do the exact same thing that Cain did. You go and try to see about this individual. You go try to find him. You try to put hands on him. I am almost willing to guarantee that is the response that you would have. Even the most holy of men, I can imagine, can start to picture images of violence in their mind and want to see those images of violence come into fruition. And the fact that the judge doesn't seem to understand that and is wagging a little self-righteous finger at Cain, refusing his bail, calling him a menace to society, when this individual who is a trained UFC fighter has no history, none whatsoever, of being a bully, of using his skill set to inflict pain on ordinary citizens. He fights for a living. He's a martial artist. He has self-control. He's a contributing member to society. He's upstanding. He's got letters and letters coming and vouching for his character, his integrity. And you take none of that into consideration as a judge. You don't take the trauma and the intense grief and pain and feeling of sense of helplessness that this father has right now. You don't consider that to be valuable. And instead you want him to rot in a jail cell while the pedophile walks around. California deserves to fall and crumble if these are the kinds of people that Californians are going to elect into places of positions of authority. How can you make a decision to not provide this man with bail? You should be locking the pedophile up. He should be away right now until his court hearing, not with an ankle monitor, able to go to the grocery store, watch TV, hang out, sit there with his Roku device and watch Netflix. This is ridiculous. While Cain Velasquez has to eat prison food and sit in a cell, we can't see his son, who his son needs his father now more than ever. Where's daddy? Where's my daddy? Judge, you're not thinking about that, are you, when you made this decision? We have to protect the pedophile and his family. So guys, this really was hurtful. I spent a lot of time talking about this, but as a father myself, I can't imagine. I really hope that they change course and they allow Cain to have bail so that he can get out until the time of his hearing. And, whatever charges that come from shooting into someone's car, yeah, that can't happen. Thank God no one died. No life-threatening injuries occurred from this situation. We have to do better as a society. We can't punish the victim. Cain is the victim. Let's be clear. Cain is the victim. Cain Velasquez and his son and his family are the victims, not Goulart and his terrible parent, his ridiculous mother, who created an environment for her grown son, freeloading grown son who can't take care of himself, apparently at 43 years old, living with his mother. You didn't have any signs that your grown adult son was a creep and a pervert. I know you did. She should be in jail for aiding and abetting a criminal, maybe even running criminal enterprise. Because if this serial rape and molestation is happening in your house and you don't know your son, where are you during these times? Where are you when your son is taking Velasquez's 4-year-old son to the bathroom? What are you doing? Where's the oversight, supervision? This is what we should be investigating. She should be in jail right now. Cain should be out on bail. Not in America, because we love perversion. And that brings me into another sexually charged topic. Let's go from maps, pedophiles to the LGBTQIA plus. The acronym just continues to expand. They keep adding letters to it. And I guess the plus, that's what gives them kind of the, ability. I don't know how it's evolving, man. It's evolving. The kinds of different sex acts and different ways you can identify sexually is just expanding. It's like boundless. It used to be just, gay and lesbian. And then you had some people that were like cross-dressers or transsexuals, right? And then bisexual. And then queer came, which is, I don't know why queer is different than gay and lesbian. I've read it, but it still doesn't make much sense to me. And now we have IA and plus. They're just expanding their efforts, man. I mean, from a marketing perspective, they're doing a phenomenal job with their messaging. I mean, they are just convinced the whole world, or not, should I say the Western world, that this is completely normal. That homosexual sex, gay sex, or lesbian sex, or whatever else is the exact same. There's no difference in heterosexual relations. They're all the same. There's no difference, right? Like they really pounding that into the minds, especially of a younger generation. What's curious about this, though, is that the indoctrination of little kids, they want little kids for as young as 4 or 5 years old to accept their identifiers. Like, we're introducing sex and sexual themes and concepts to little kids at extremely early ages when their brains are not even developed enough to understand and comprehend the level of complexity in some of these things. Like, they're not even hitting puberty. They don't even have necessarily a really strong cognizance of what sex and sexuality means. But the LGBTQ community, man, they just want to get to the kids as early as they can, don't they? You got to get these kids accepting these things so that when they become adults, they don't think that it's anything wrong, right? So that you can feel better about your decisions that you're making as an adult. You want little kids to see these images. It's happening all across the country. And again, you would think that based off what you see on TV from movies and television and ad commercials, that half the nation was identifying as LGBTQIA plus, gender fluid, pansexual, non-binary, and the like. Everybody has these things. Half the nation apparently is identifying in this way. Heterosexual people are like actually a minority now, is what you would think if you watch TV. And it doesn't bother me as an adult to see adults engaging in sexual acts, because you have free will on the earth. You can do what you will with your time and your body, and whatever consequences and repercussions that you suffer as a result of your decision making is on to you. But the issue that I have is the indoctrination of children. Yes, I said it, indoctrination. And what's so funny is that the LGBTQIA plus community will accuse religious communities of indoctrination at early ages and will get very upset about that. But yet then they go around and use the same quote unquote tactics and then say that it's fine. It's the level of hypocrisy. I mean, even within the LGBTQI, it's exhausting even saying all those letters. It's ridiculous. They don't even see eye to eye on things. Like, again, I mentioned this on a previous episode. You have people that identify as homosexual grown adults that don't agree with the campaigns. It's like they are pushing this agenda down our throat. I'm still aggravated as an African-American male that they have 31 days, and Black History Month is the shortest month of the year. It seems like a slap in the face. They get June, summer month, you go outside and do things. We get February. It's cold, it's gloomy, it's only 21 days, it's short-lived. Lets you know what the nation thinks about Black people. They think more highly of people that are identifying as LGBTQ, whatever, than they do Black people. Yeah, I went to Shake Shack and they had a rainbow milkshake. Who does that appeal to? Ask yourself. Grown adult drink rainbow milkshake? No, it's for a kid. How come when I go to Shake Shack in February, they don't got like a super dark chocolate milkshake? I don't see any Black History Month centric milkshakes at Shake Shack. I feel very slighted, to be quite honest. Where's my milkshake, Shake Shack? Where's the Black History Month milkshake? But you're sure in the hell quick to put a Pride Month milkshake. The whole month is Pride Month. Shake Shack got all kind of pride shakes, pride burgers. Doing a great job with your marketing. Doing a great job with the messaging and indoctrination. Doing an even greater job of putting homosexual cartoons on TV. Grown adults drawing, animating gay cartoons, lesbian cartoons, transsexual cartoons. What makes a grown adult make a cartoon for a 5-year-old? You sat down and took the time to make 2 cartoon characters kiss one another. Think about that for a second. But this is what adults are doing. And this is happening in Disney and Pixar. You've got a huge contingent of people within this community, the alphabet mob, that are pressing to have overtly gay and lesbian cartoons for children. That's supposed to be family programming, but they view sexual acts that are outside of heterosexual acts as normal, right? That's their viewpoint. That's their vantage point. It's the same. It's the same. Because you can rub two vaginas together and make a baby, right? A man can insert his penis in another man's anus and get him pregnant, right? That's normal, completely normal. All you evolutionists out there, why haven't we had evolution? I mean, homosexual acts have been around for thousands and thousands of years of human history. Why has the human being not evolved? Why can't two men, one man put his penis in another man's anus and impregnate another man? Why can't two women rub their vaginas together and create a baby? Why is that? Because it's not sex primarily the first priority of it is for the purpose of reproduction. Isn't that why a female has ovaries and eggs and a uterus, fallopian tubes in her body, and a man has testicles and he has the ability to produce semen, and then the semen ejaculate goes into a woman's body and then impregnates an egg? Isn't that what we learned scientifically, right? Like, that's science last time I checked, right? So then if that is scientific, then that means that the natural state of two humans interacting in sex is a man and a woman, correct? That's natural. That's normal. So that means that two men, they have the same equipment. So then are you having sex for the purpose of reproduction? Or what? It can't be for that. So that has to be for pleasure. So there's no doubt that sex acts of any kind are pleasurable. But that doesn't make them right, though. And that doesn't make them moral. It doesn't make them normal either. You can say that they're pleasurable, and I'm pretty sure it is pleasurable because sex acts are pleasurable. And so if you do anything that brings you to an orgasm, whether you're by yourself or with another person, that is a form of pleasure. But the fact that you want people to accept the fact that this is how you please yourself without judgment, that to me is not something that you can do, right? Like, I can say, well, I don't necessarily agree with the way you live your life, but you have the freedom to do it, and I don't judge you for that. But when you start trying to put cartoons, and I, as a parent, turn on what I think is going to be just a very harmless show to watch with my children, and there's overtly homosexual themes in it, and now I'm put in this very precarious and awkward situation as a parent to have to describe to my son at whatever age, or my daughter, why there are two little boys holding hands and kissing each other. I shouldn't have to do that. But the LGBT community only cares about themselves, which is, again, ironic because they accuse people that are outside of that community of not caring about them, but yet they do the things that they don't consider how others are put in very uncomfortable situations, because it's not normal for two men to have sexual relations. It's not. It's accepted in the Western world as being okay because there's no divine principles that guide it, or they try to, dismiss things that they read within divine principles to justify it. But the last time I checked, two men can't get each other pregnant by anal sex. It doesn't work. Disney and Pixar. Here we are with them. Bob Chapek, he's under fire at Disney, the CEO, because he hasn't had a response to, I don't know who named some of these stupid bills, though, like the Don't Say Gay bill. Like, don't say gay. That's like corny. Who did that? I don't know who did that, but it's a corny name to call the bill. But it's a push for parents in Florida. They don't want their kids being exposed to conversations about sexuality at that age, and that is a legitimate desire, man. Don't put me in situations where I have to talk about sex to my 8-year-old. I want my 8-year-old to watch Peppa Pig and go play outside, to go play soccer and to draw and to color. Like, we don't need to bring sex into a conversation at 8 years old. And so there is this push to have those things excluded from schools. But you know what's happened? Disney and Pixar, the community, the LGBTQ plus community within Pixar and Disney they're raging because they want gay cartoons. And they don't like the fact that every time they send in gay animation, overtly gay affection, the heads at Disney reject it. Something is wrong with you people. Like the fact that you go work at a company that you know is a family focused company that makes content for kids, and your desire is to animate homosexual cartoon characters so that you can feel better about yourself. So you want people to be uncomfortable so that you can be uncomfortable, so that you can be comfortable. That's super selfish. But yet you'll accuse others of being selfish. So which one is it? Whose desires then should be fulfilled? What are we basing it off of, right? Like, whose way is right? Is your way right? Those that disagree with you, you don't like them, you call them judgmental, but then what are you doing? Are you not judging? If I don't want my kid to see homosexual, overtly gay affection and animation in cartoons, then you call me a bigot. Well, what are you? You're being bigoted, aren't you not? Because you are rejecting my concern by saying, well, this is no concern at all. Well, based off what? What are you basing that off of? Your own opinion? I think that it's a problem. You think that it's not a problem. How do we determine who's right? The only way that I know how to do it is looking above what human standards are, looking at divine principles, and just looking at scientific principles too as well. The same way that homosexuals will try to use science, say, well, there's been homosexual acts, in the animal kingdom. Well, first of all, we're not animals. Unless you're like a Darwinian theorist, because Darwinian evolution is not fact, it's just theory. And you think that, okay, we're just animals and there's no consciousness, there's no soul. When you die, nothing happens. You just go back to dust. You have atheistic thinking. Then, yeah, I guess for you, one act is equal to the next. But even from that standpoint, scientifically, how could you argue that? Because you know that there's semen in a man's body, and that semen is ejaculated for the purpose of impregnating a woman. That's the purpose of it. What other purposes does it have? It feels good to release it, but the ultimate purpose of it is to impregnate a woman's egg. It's for reproduction, because sex is primarily a reproductive act. But no, the perverts at Pixar, they want to have sexual immorality of all shapes and sizes in cartoons so that our kids can be exposed to it at an early age, so that they can normalize sexually immoral acts, so they can feel better about their unrighteous deeds, because they don't want to feel any kind of conviction or remorse or guilt because of the lifestyles that they're living are beneath God's design for them and outside of God's will for their life. And they want what they want. And so you want to invite other people into your mess so that it doesn't feel like mess anymore, right? Because if everyone wholesale accepts sexual immorality in all shapes and forms, then we're all engaged in the same act. So therefore, nobody can judge anybody else, or no one can accuse or anyone else. Or no one can point the finger, because we're all engaging in all these things. I think that, Pete, to be quite honest, people are engaging in all of these things regardless. And let me be clear. I don't think that there's any difference between homosexual or heterosexual lust. I think that it all falls short of divine principle. A person who lusts after a man, or a man who lusts after a woman, or a man who lusts after a transsexual, or a man who lusts after children, or a man who lusts after animals, or a man who lusts after fill in the blank. It's still lust. It's still wrong. If your desire is to fulfill a fleshly pleasure, then it's wrong. So I don't view homosexual lust as different than heterosexual lust. There are some that try to make that claim that, like, the guy who's out here sleeping with 10, 15 women is better than the guy who sleeps with one man. They're both equal, okay? Lust is lust. If you're doing things that do not bring honor to your own body, if your purpose and your primary function is to please yourself, and that is the highest good to you, pleasure, then I'm pretty sure I look at your life and I'm going to find a lot of other things that are wrong too with it. This is tough to talk about, right? Because I'm sure that, again, I'm drawing the ire. But those that, agree, support, right? Because I'm going to continue to talk about these things. I'm not going to shy away from them. This is interesting. I wanted to read some of what the people, a letter signed by the community there, the rainbow community at Pixar. A letter signed by the LGBTQ plus employees of Pixar and their allies, which took Chapek to task over his response to the Florida bill, particularly resonating was circulated within Disney, becoming an unofficial manifesto of the internal dissent. Multiple employees from various divisions tell Deadline the harsh picture painted in the letter is a truthful representation of how people there feel and how LGBTQ plus content has been stifled for years at a company whose business is built largely on a foundation of family entertainment. Well, that's why it's been stifled. It's been stifled because a family can only be produced by a man and a woman having sex. If you are a gay couple or a lesbian couple, are you naive? Are you foolish? In order for you to have a child, you have to have heterosexual involvement. You're going to have to go and get heterosexual people to create life for you, because you cannot create a family by yourself. Because two men cannot make babies. Two women cannot make babies. A family is created by a man and a woman coming together to have sex and creating life. That is how life on this earth is created. So a family that is a man, a woman, a child, multiple children, which is what Disney's content is supposed to be for, although Disney's content seems to have a whole lot of divination and incantations and spells and casting of witchery, and that's a whole. I'm going to talk about that maybe on some bonus content. If I get some subscribers after this episode, I'm going to do a private podcast about divination, incantation, and Disney content. That's motivation for you to go and support the platform. Listen to this. We at Pixar personally witnessed beautiful stories full of diverse characters. You see, this language is crafted so cleverly. All right, I'm going to come back to that diverse thing. And then, I'm not going to get to one of my other stories that I wanted to get to. I may have to use it on bonus content too as well. Listen to this, okay? We at Pixar have personally witnessed beautiful stories full of diverse characters come back from Disney corporate reviews, shaved down to crumbs of what they once were. One of the letter's most talked about statements said, "Nearly every moment of overtly gay affection is cut at Disney's behest, regardless of when there's protest from both the creative teams and executive leadership at Pixar." Listen to that, guys. Diverse characters. They want you to believe that LGBTQ people are an ethnic group. Like they came out of the womb and was like, oh, this baby is a gay child. This is a gay, it's got a penis, but this is a trans child. You know, we did a DNA test and we came out gay. I am offended as a person of African descent by this foolishness. I'm offended. I represent diversity. If I go do a DNA test, I am a person of African descent. I have origin of African descent. My hair, my skin, my lips. There's certain things that I have abilities that are built in, to me that ethnic groups have. That's what makes me a person of African descent. I represent diversity. You do not, because you choose to have homosexual encounters. You are not considered amongst the diverse group of people. Hispanics are representing diversity. People of African descent, people of Asian descent, people of European descent. That represents diversity. Gender represents diversity. Sexual proclivities do not represent diversity. Why are we identifying people by their sexual perversions and what they choose to engage in sexually? Should we now then identify people who have orgies? What about people who like threesomes? What about people who are swingers? What about MAPs? Minor attracted peoples. That's a community, is it not? There's a whole lot of them running around. Shouldn't we just make them a community? Shouldn't MAPs have like a group, like a forum, a chat forum, and a committee group, and they can get together and talk about MAP relationships and, right? Like, is that what we're doing now? We're identifying people. What about the BDSM community? Isn't that a community? Should they be considered diverse? This is audacious, man. Nearly every moment, overtly gay cartoon characters that we have sketched, grown adults in their 30s and 40s are creating gay cartoons and saying, here, we want you to put this out to 5-year-olds so that they'll look at homosexual affection and think that it's normal at 5, so we can indoctrinate them. That's what you're doing. You want a 5-year-old to recognize your acts that you don't quite feel right about, that you're trying to like push through it. And what you want to do is say, well, it's the world around me that's making me feel this way. No, I would think if the entire world accepted you, would still inside of you know that this is not natural. I can't make a family. I'm going to have to go and get if I'm 2 gay men, I'll have to go get a woman. If I'm two females, I'm going to have to go get a man to impregnate one of us, because you cannot make a baby. You cannot create a family. You're just a single gay man. two single gay men living together, or you can be a couple, but you can't do anything. You can ejaculate into your partner's anus 1,000 times, and it's not going to produce a baby because that's not the order of things. But yet you want to convince us that that's what's natural and normal. I don't accept it. I don't buy it. I don't care if you get upset about it. This is ridiculous. It's foolishness, and we'll talk about it too some more. But I had another story that I wanted to kind of approach internationally. Maybe I'll talk about it next time, or I'll talk about it on some bonus content. But I got to get y'all to give a little bit so I can create the content on the bonus guide. Last story, I like to end with something positive. I want to talk about a story that I saw from a business owner. And as you know, all of us, no matter how you identify, are struggling with gas prices because of the situation in Ukraine, which is interesting because we are dependent on things and people that, that's I can't even get into that right now. All kind of domestic foreign policy on drilling and fracking and everything else. There's a lot of opinions around that, but that's a whole other conversation. I saw something, and when you see these kind of stories in the midst of seeing stories like people, cheating, like you've probably seen the stories of people like stealing 400 gallons of gas, this Jimmy rigged van, and they're pulling up over the what do you call those things? My mind is like going blank. When you go to the gas station, they got the big things, the tanks or whatever, right? They pulled up over that, and they're like siphoning gas out of it and stealing gas, but that's just pathetic. Heathens know no bound, man. I mean, goodness grief, man. People invent ways of doing evil. But this is a positive story. This local gas station in North Carolina, they dropped the gas price to $2.25 a gallon to help people in the local community. This is really cool. The business owner took a loss to help people. Think about that. Something more valuable than money. Go figure. America's idol, idolatrous nation that worships money. Somebody thought that, you know what, there's something more important than money and my own self-desire to amass riches for myself. I'm going to give to those around me and create an act of benevolence, even though it doesn't benefit me financially. And this gas station dropped their gas to $2.25 a gallon in Burnsville, North Carolina. Amid an international surge in the cost of fuel, in North Carolina gas stations surprised drivers Thursday. This is a little over a week ago now, by dropping prices. And it was cool. Regular gas was selling for $2.25 a gallon at the Burnsville Citgo at the corner of US 19 East and Depot Street. The station's owner said they just wanted to help people, even though they took a loss by cutting prices. And customers who spoke to the news station, they appreciated it. The cheap gas was available from just before noon to about 5 when it ran out. The station expected another delivery Thursday night or Friday morning, and the owners plan to do another sale soon. These kind of stories, they brighten my soul, right? They give me hope, not necessarily for humanity in terms of this space and time on this planet that is going to be able to survive the calamity to come, but it gives me hope that there's still a remnant of people who have what I would call God consciousness, that they are trying to channel divine principles through their vessel, through their being, to do something that is not for themselves according to their own fleshly and selfish desires, but to do something that benefits those around them. Those kinds of things, I think they have ripple effects, right? Because they awaken the minds of people. Maybe the person who was blessed by this, who knows, maybe they had almost no money. Maybe they didn't have the ability to get gas that day. Maybe they were, pressed, or they had a bad day at work and it was overwhelming for them, and they, came to this place and they saw $2.25 and they pulled up, and that just brightened their day, and they went home with a different outlook, different countenance. These kinds of things are a blessing. I think it's good, and I think that we definitely should applaud people like this, and we should also try to imitate them. We should use as examples and try to mimic and emulate this in our own surroundings, in our own personal communities. And how can we be good? And not even good, right? But how can we be more cognizant of aware of the consequences that our actions have on people in our families, within our communities, in the world around us? How can we be aware of it? How can we try to channel something that benefits those that we interact with on a day-to-day basis? How can we have conversations that are hard, disagree, Because here's the thing, like, my desire is not to ridicule people for the sake of ridiculing. My harshness is for the purpose of pointing things out. Because somebody has to say things in a way, because honestly, nobody responds. Everyone is in a slumber. You're in a stupor. And sometimes you've got to be a resounding gong. You've got to wake people up out of their slumber, psychological, mental slumber. People are zombied out. And so, that's the desire here, is to sound the alarm. Hopefully I can awaken minds. And, sometimes that awakening may come through frustration. It may come through indignation. You don't like me. You don't like what I say. But if you ponder the things that I say and you go and reflect back on it, and it presses you a little bit, perhaps there's a seed that's planted. And if not, then so be it. The desire for me is to help people get closer to what the divine looks like, and to release you from the bondage that you've ensnared yourself into, because there's so much of it, and I'm guilty of it too as well, which is the reason why, I talk about these things. I'm not perfect in any way. Just to be clear, there is no one under the sun, no man, no human that's perfect. And the desire is not for perfection, but the desire is to have a wherewithal and a cognizance of your actions and how they affect you and how they affect other people. And do your best to review yourself, to cleanse yourself, and to work on it every day. But in the midst of calamitous nation states that we live in collapsing societies, it's very difficult and challenging, and I know it. But I'm here. You have support in me. You're not alone. Don't give up. Even if the whole world goes astray, you stay the course. This is Beat Out the Professor. Farewell, fallen nations. I'm out.